Here's how you can travel hundreds of meters in just a few seconds, and here's how you can find free private servers. In this video I'll be telling you 10 Blox Fruit tricks that pros abuse that you don't. Now let's begin. Alright, the first trick is pretty easy to do. All you need is the electric claw fighting style and to be on the PC version of Roblox. Now if you're playing Roblox on full screen, press F11 or Alt plus Enter to enter the bordered version, which has white bars on the top and bottom. You should now see white borders at the top and bottom of your screen, so right after you use the X move of electric claw, quickly hold the top border for a second or two, which will freeze your game, then release and you'll get flung. The distance you get flung isn't consistent, but it's usually over 100 meters, which is good, and compared to other moves, doing this trick is by far the best as it makes you travel the furthest. Honestly, just because of this trick, the electric claw fighting style may be my new main fighting style from now on. Like just there, I traveled so fast the game thought I was hacking and teleported me back. Alright, so the second pro trick is a trick which you can use to find private servers for free. The first method is for the first C only. Simply go to the server page of Blox Fruits and scroll down till you see these servers. Then over here, sort the number of players by ascending, and tap on exclude full servers. You now have a bunch of almost empty servers, and let's be real, having one person in the server with you isn't gonna affect you at all. They're probably also minding their own business trying to grind. This method won't work for the second and third C sadly, which is where method 2 comes into play. Alright, method 2 is pretty simple. Just search up free Blox Fruit private servers on Google and click on the first link. Even though these private servers may not be completely empty, they'll be way more peaceful than a public server. Now that's the second pro trick, so let's move on. Alright, so the next pro trick is the pale scarf glitch. If you're a bounty hunter, you definitely know how useful this accessory is, because usually when you turn on your instinct hotkey, you can only see people who are on the same island as you. However, if you're using the pale scarf accessory, when you turn on instinct you can see everyone in the server, which is obviously great for bounty hunters. However, the problem with the pale scarf is that the other buffs it provides isn't really that good, as speed in my opinion is by far the best attribute for fighting, which is why not many people use this accessory. However, did you know that there is a way where you can have the instinct vision of the pale scarf but the buffs of another accessory? It's pretty simple to do. Simply equip the pale scarf, turn on instinct, then swap to whatever accessory you prefer. And as long as you don't turn off your instinct, you'll still have the instinct range as if you had the pale scarf accessory. And yeah, that's the third pro trick, so let's move on. Alright, so the fourth pro trick is pretty simple, and it's how to get bounty or honor fast. So, if your bounty or honor is less than 2.5 million, bosses will actually give you tons of bounty or honor once you defeat them. The amount of bounty/honor you get from these bosses depends on their level, but in the third C each boss gives around 40,000, which is crazy, as defeating a max bounty/honor player gives only 18,000. So, if your bounty or honor is less than 2.5 million, literally just defeat bosses. They give more bounty or honor than a real player, and are also much easier to defeat. However, if you're worth more than 2.5 million you won't get any bounty/honor from defeating a boss. This is pretty fair in my opinion, since you obviously don't want a player getting the maximum bounty and honor possible by just defeating bosses and never fighting a real player. Anyway, let's move on. Alright, the next trick is how to get money in Blox Fruits fast. There are many methods of getting money, but the best ones are third C exclusive, so if you don't have that C unlocked, getting money may be hard. However, that's where this pro trick comes in, as there's a way to get 5.4 million cash per hour in the first C. The strategy is simple. You kill the Vice Admiral boss, take the quest to server hop, then repeat. With the quest included, you get around 30,000 money each time you kill the boss. But that's with the 2 times money game pass. If you don't have it you'll get around 15,000 obviously, since this boss is a really low level, 130, you can one-shot him if you're a high level or just defeat him really easily if your level is like above 400. Because of this, you can defeat the boss 3 times in a minute, which is 90,000 money a minute or 45,000 if you don't have the 2 times money game pass, and in an hour that's 5.4 million or 2.2 million without the game pass, which is very good for a first C method. Now let's move on to the next pro trick. Alright, this next pro trick is server hopping. I probably should have mentioned this before the previous tip about farming the Vice Admiral for money, since that strategy heavily depends on server hopping, but whatever. Server hopping is pretty self-explanatory. You keep changing servers till you find a server which has what you want. So if you were farming a boss, you would keep changing servers till you find one where he's alive so you can kill him. Now that might not seem like a pro trick and that this is pretty obvious, however here's where the real trick comes in. Instead of leaving Roblox and rejoining Blox Fruits, just tap here and join any one of these servers. You might need to scroll down a bit, since the top servers will probably be full. Server hopping like this is way faster than leaving and rejoining, and if you are in the second and third sea, it'll skip most of the loading, meaning you have less loading time, saving a few seconds. Now that's this pro trick covered. It was pretty simple, so now let's move on. Alright, the next pro trick is how to max your hockey out fast, as maxing out your hockey is pretty hard and time consuming. Alright, the strategy is pretty simple, so I won't waste your time. First, make sure you're using a Logia fruit, as they provide immunity to mob attacks once you reach a certain level above them. Just check on Google if you aren't sure if your current fruit is Logia. You can also use the blade fruit, which provides immunity to sword attacks. Now get an auto clicker. Just download one of Google/your app store, and go to the exact spawn location of a mob. If you haven't already realized, you're going to AFK grind these mobs overnight, which will get you tons of aura hockey XP. Also, you can only get hockey experience if you attack with either a melee sword or gun. Fruit attacks do not give hockey experience, so just keep that in mind. So pretty much, use a Logia fruit, or the chop fruit, then go to whatever enemy you have immunity to and turn on your auto clicker with your weakest weapon possible so the mob doesn't die fast. Overnight, you'll most likely have your aura hockey maxed out, or nearly maxed out at least. You can't max out the instinct hockey however, so let's move on. The next trick is about trading, and it's how to easily know the value of your fruits when trading to ensure that whenever you trade you're getting a good deal. Now this pro trick is pretty simple. Go to bloxfruitvalues.com, and use their trade calculator to see if your trade is a profit. I mean, yeah, that's pretty much the pro trick, so make sure you use a trade calculator when trading to know if your trade is a win/loss. Alright, the next pro trick is knowing how to use codes. This trick is for the new players, as if you don't already know, this game has codes. These codes give you 2 times experience for usually around 20 to 30 minutes, or a stat refund. To use a code, just press on this blue gift button over here, and type in a code. You can find codes by just searching on Google, but just make sure you save some codes for the future seas. Lastly, for the 10th and final tip, it's AFK grinding. Did you know that you can pretty much AFK grind everything in the game? All you need to AFK grind is an auto clicker. Download one off Google/your app store, and TinyTask. The auto clicker is self-explanatory, it clicks for you, so you'll easily be able to AFK grind mastery on fighting styles, swords, and guns if you're using a fruit like Buddha. Like in my current spot, the mobs here can't damage me while I can, because Buddha increases my attack range, so I just turn on my auto clicker and come back a few hours later. You can also use Logia type fruits to AFK grind mastery. Just go to the exact spawn location of a mob that can't damage you, turn on your auto clicker and then AFK. You definitely need to use your brain a bit to find AFK grinding spots for yourself. And now if you want to AFK grind other stuff, like mastery on fruits that don't have M1s, you use TinyTask. TinyTask pretty much repeats the actions you just did, so let's say you wanted to AFK grind mastery on gravity, you would find a good AFK spot like this where enemies cannot hit you, then you'd use TinyTask to keep on using the C and V move. You gotta use your brain a lot if you want to use this method, as you'll need to find the perfect location to AFK. You can install TinyTask off Google. I'd recommend watching a tutorial if you have no idea how to use TinyTask, but don't worry, it's very user-friendly. For mobile players, you can try a multi-point auto-clicker. It auto-clicks on multiple spots on your screen, unlike a regular auto-clicker, so you could make the auto-clicker click in the use spot, and then the ability spot, which I guess would work similar to TinyTask. If you have any questions you can ask in the comments and I'll try my best to reply, but other than that, those are 10 tricks pros abuse that you don't. Anyway guys, that's the end of this video. If you found this video useful, make sure you like and subscribe, and you might also find this video useful too.